Hey all, Battleblood here again. So I've had a crazy December so far. It's been loaded with a lot of work and a lot of real life items. First, I had my second Wizardversary actually, which is I've completed my second year of playing Wizard101 back on December 6th. So we kicked off a party on Saturday, but I didn't make it a huge thing because I did have to study and had to take care of some other stuff. So we had a few matches in there, and that was that. It ended early, just as I had hoped. So after that, I was studying for finals, and that went pretty well. But anyways, I'm working on some stuff with Pet Gnome right now. We are going to go international with that. As we're hopping into 2012, we'll be working on including Germany in there. So on the Pet Gnome project, we just have the English listed talents. So what we're gonna do is also include ones for the German pets. And whether there'll be a difference or not, I hopefully GameForge can help us out on that and work it out and let us know if there's any subtle or distinct differences between the U.S. pets and the German pets or the European pets, I'd have to say. So, and we've completed about 115 pets so far on there. So, um, thanks to this great and wonderful community, we're going to try to help out European players. And you know what? I'm assuming with the help of international players, we might get 50 or 60 more completed in about a year, if not less. So, looking forward to that. So, anyways, I've gathered a bunch of questions. I'll quit babbling right now, and actually some comments. And this has been a while. Some of these are from past weeks ago. So, if they've already been answered, thanks to whoever's answered them for me. But if not, hopefully this will help you out. So, anyways, we'll start not with a question, but with a comment by rivaldocosmjay. I'm just gonna butcher all these names, anyways. And he says, or he or she says, nice vid, but you've got to stop reporting people. It really hurts. You should stop because they spent a lot of money and hard work to get suspended. And I just have to say, that statement itself is almost illogical, rival. Um, because if you think about it this way, you did sign a contract when you installed the game. Anytime that you sign up for an account anywhere where you're inputting your email address and some password and all these other credentials and information, anytime that you're doing this with an entity or a business or a computer program even, you're given some responsibilities as a user of their service and the product. Um, Usually called terms of service. For Wizard101, they're called terms of use. And what this is basically you can use our product or our service, but there are some guidelines, and they're actually, well, not just guidelines, but there are actually some rules, you know. And one, federal rule is that you can't copy this, you can't commercialize it, which means, make money off of our product for yourself and not give any, not no proceeds go into us per se. That's kind of against the law in a way. So, though that bulleted list, or at least that numbered list that you get, that most of us kind of just scroll down and don't even bother to read, these are all, you know, the reason why we do tend to scroll down is because we're either too lazy to read it, or for those of us who know what's in it already, it matches common sense. You don't take advantage of a service or an item that you're given, created by a unique and original item that's created by someone else. You don't take that and you know you don't take advantage of that for yourself per se. And that's just one of the big issues. But there are also some other promises that you've made when you installed the game for Wizard 101. For example, when you clicked agree, or at least when you took the wizard test, you agreed to keep this game family friendly. You agreed not to harass anyone, not to bully anyone, or violate the rules, whatever they are, whether they're local or state, whatever laws, or threaten other people. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of that entire contract. And for the rest of us who have abided to that, who have agreed to those rules, um, when we see other players cussing or running around the game and kind of ruining the integrity of the game. Just the fact that it's clean and then that it's friendly in there is what keeps most of us in. It's not like other games where people are just trolling around and shouting insults at each other and kind of ruining the moment for other gamers, whether they're younger or older. And so, as community members and as players of this game, we have to do our own duties and help KingsIsle, kind of weed out those people who want to ruin the fun. That's more the reason why they gave us a report button. I can't imagine. There are some big issues like someone trying to steal an account. Yeah, that's reportable. But at the same time, it's also to help keep the game clean. KingsIsle doesn't go around and check millions and millions of accounts to make sure that everyone's got a clean mouth or at least a clean writing. But when there's someone that's really profane or someone that's really bad or someone that just needs to be out of the game, until they've kind of matured and grown up and learn that, cussing is the most ignorant way to address someone, then it's time that they can return to the game. And that's why we want to point these people out to KingsIsle and say, hey, this is someone you might want to check out, especially their history. If someone's doing this over and over throughout their play history, then that's a serious issue. That this wasn't a slip up, that this was truly intentional and malicious in nature. So, I've had my share of, 18 and over games, and I've gone from game to game and just didn't really have any reason to really stay. Most of the community, you kind of feel like you're soloed or soloing most of the time because you don't know if someone's going to scam you in a trade. There's just no sense of security in other games unless you're playing with someone you know. So for most people who don't game with friends, who are just stepping into Wizard101 or the Spiral itself alone, if they're running around and they're seeing a bunch of nasty language being shot back and forth, then they really don't feel that this is a family game or a game for kids, really. Or it could be just a game of immature kids, and then it really kind of ruins the image of the game itself, and as you can see, not everyone just goes around and says things or insults each other. And so again, just making sure that we can weed those types of people out. That's what the report button's there, and if we can do our best to remove someone, or at least flag someone for, being non-family friendly, then we'll do it. That's a privilege to us as soon as we entered the game. So, and another way to think about it is, if you're concerned about these people spending their money to play the game, but then kind of violating the rules, then you have to understand that, it's not like they won't be able to play ever again. Maybe they'll be muted for like a week, or in some cases 10 years. But it doesn't affect, they can't play anymore. They just can't play in the same way. They can't chat. And, I guess the chat here is privileged then. So, if someone ends up losing their account, it's not because of one instance. KingsIsle actually looks into the history, and if it's a series of events, then that person will lose the account. If it's a one-time slip-up, I don't think it really matters. So, it's not a big deal. And at the same time, think of this analogy. You pay to get into, let's say, an event, the fair. That doesn't mean you can go around and vandalizing and kicking others, without getting kicked out yourself. So think about it that way. You just have to have respect and courtesy for other players, and that's what matters most. I think that's what we're paying our money for. Otherwise, if it's completely free, I think the language, there wouldn't be a language filter. There wouldn't be customer support trying to filter through all these reports. So just think about it that way a bit. Anyways, I will drop that issue and move on to some actual questions. So from Voldemort Killer 97, he has two questions, or he or she, asking how long have I been playing. I've answered that at the beginning. Ever since December 6th, about 2 years. And he's wondering if I'm a beta player since I know, some of the history about it before all the new expansions. Well, that I actually have to give a lot of kudos to Ronan Dawn. He's the one who's been playing right after the beta became live, I believe. I didn't come until about a year later, and so Ronan's kind of been filling me in and teaching me about the history, about the Dragon Blades, and the old PvP and everything. Just out of my own curiosity, I was wondering how much did this game change and what has it evolved into? Because there are a lot of interesting trends and changes that they've implemented in this game that I wonder what's their next move, and to sort of calculate or at least get an idea of where that's going, you kind of have to look back in the past and find out what they're doing throughout history, and that can give you some clues to what's going to come out next, or when things will arrive. When a new feature happens to pop up on a certain month or on a certain day, sometimes you can find that out. So I've asked him a lot of questions, and he's always been there and great and always happy to help. So that's how I'm caught up with a lot of stuff. And then the second one is, how do you think KingsIsle will handle the gear stat problem in future worlds? For example, we know we can raise critical rating to astronomical levels, and in the future we may have 100%. Do you think KingsIsle should no longer make the gear with higher critical damage boost than it currently is? I can't really speak for them at all, and I mean, even if I had to theory craft or at least guess, it's hard to say. There's a lot of math involved behind this, and I'm sure they've got some kind of system in place. But at the same time, looking at the way that things are going now, I'm even questioning about what their next move is. So far, they have not fixed the critical versus block ratings within PvP, or at least kept it separate between PvE and PvP. They kind of integrated all these stats all together and believe that it'll work in both worlds when it doesn't. So, I mean, the fact that critical and block are not that balanced, and with the addition of armor piercing, it's really, really hard to say. Next, we have Brennan317, who asked, "How did you make it so it doesn't show your health and book and all that stuff?" All that stuff there's a formal term for it, and it's called the interface. And much more formally, the user interface. So if you're trying out other games and you want to ask that same question, it's basically, how do I remove the interface or the user interface? And for Wizard101, that's, you hold down Control button and you press G, and that should remove it. And then to bring that back up, you just do the same thing, Control and G to bring those back up. Keep those terms in mind, and you'll be able to soar around different games and find out this exact same answer. Next, we have one from Edgar. How are you able to talk to your friends through a mic on Wizard101? I tried to talk to my friend through a mic on Wizard101, but couldn't figure it out. Yeah, Wizard101, because it is a family-based game, does not offer a voice chat. Voice chat itself is an issue, especially, I mean, you first of all, TPC and how we were able to talk to friends through a mic was using a third-party program to communicate. And we're all consenting adults, and there's, I mean, if you happen to be under 18, your parents may or may not be on the fence with whether or not you should be voice chatting with other people, especially over the net. And that's because, just basically anything can be said. There isn't any filters. There's just a lot of danger that can come towards children and towards younger audiences when voice chat has evolved. So, I mean, I won't explain what we're using exactly, but right now, Wizard101 does not have a voice chat feature, and I honestly don't think they'll ever have one. They'll have to have a moderator listening in to all these conversations on a 24/7 basis to make sure that safety of player is not compromised. So just as a short answer in itself, I can't really tell you what to use or how to do that. So sorry about that, Edgar, but hopefully you understand. Next, we have a question from SophiaRosieWiz. Hey Kevin, I was wondering, Are there going to be more vids with Missy? And will there be some matches with Hexy? We do have some matches with Hexy a while ago, and we do have some matches with Missy. The thing with TPC is that, even though we kind of have 5 players, not doesn't mean that our schedules will always match. Doesn't mean that all 5 will always be on and be ready to sub in or play with one another. It seems that, as 4 of us, we're pretty consistent in terms of knowing strategies and knowing each other. And knowing what to do in extreme circumstances. So that's typically why you see Cassandra, Fallon, me, and Ronan. And as far as Hexy, I know she's interested in PvP, but she's not as aggressive in playing it or practicing it at least. But she's doing some 1v1 on the side. And she actually does play with us in PvP parties. She does pretty well for a pyro who doesn't team PvP all that often. It's usually because she's either watching us or listening in or participating with us in the parties. So she's got some skill in there, and quite some potential. Fact is, we don't necessarily play with other players on our 4 wizards, or at least on our TPC 2.0, because we intend to keep those 4 the same exact records, ranking, etc., so that we technically are a core uniform team. So, but you know what? I'm actually looking into a much better game recorder that can allow me to record both voice and the video. So we might see some PvP parties pop out sometime. Or PvP party videos, because before Xfire would always lag up the resources, and it was hard to play at a party with a lot of people around without kind of missing a turn while I'm recording, based on delay and all that other stuff. So, but now that I've got a much better recorder, we might see some PvP party fights, and that will introduce a bunch of other players. And what kind of styles does TPC have or play when we're not teamed together? I think that would be interesting for a lot of people to see, and to also recognize some other great players out there who attend these events. So look forward to that. And unlike the TPC videos where I have to upload them chronologically, I might upload the PvP party videos out of the blue. So you might not have to wait, as someone said, 5 months for one of those fights to come out. So keep an eye out for that. And last but not least, we have Jose1 Fast King, who asks, "Hey Kevin, I know this may sound sort of rude, but do you play any other RPGs or MMORPGs except other than Wizard101? And if not, would you like to try out some in the future?" No, I've come from a long line of MMOs actually, and like I said, I've hopped from game to game that's either been family based or non-family based, and Wizard101 has just blown me away, and it's been a really great game that I've come upon. Usually I'm trying out other MMOs at the same time as I'm kind of involved with one. So, and it's usually just to give me some refreshers for strategies, ideas. For example, the armor piercing that we have in Wizard101, I did some experimentation, and I started playing some other games to see, how do they deal with armor piercing, and sometimes it helps out. It gives you great ideas, and you start to innovate and invent different styles. So, I mean, there are some MMOs that I've done Zelda as a solo, Conquer Online as one of my first MMOs that I've tried out, Dark Eden, Runes of Magic, Fiesta, Diablo 2. So, and right now I'm actually trying out another game that I'm really interested in sharing, and it's called Cardmon. And it's basically almost like Wizard101 in the sense that you're using cards and that there are wizards, but you don't necessarily have to be a wizard. You can be a rogue or an archer and a warrior, but you're still summoning cards. And I mean, I'll explain a lot more about that later. I'm actually going to create a gameplay video on that, just to get a few more players interested. It just came out this January, so it's been out for about a complete year, and it's basically you summon cards and they fight by your side. So they're not temporary like in Wizard101 where you just cast it, they attack, and they're gone. They actually stay with you for a set interval of time, and then they disappear. But not permanently. They have cooldown times in these, so you could reuse the same card over and over technically. But it's so. I am trying out some of their MMOs. The thing is with Wizard, it's really special in a way. It's really helped me connect with a lot of great people, and a lot of great friends. And there hasn't been a game out there that's ever been like that. And I think it's a real gem that what Wizard101 is. And I think a lot of people either missed that or never had a chance to see that. But I mean, if you look back on what you find in the game and look at what they're doing, what KingsIsle is doing for the game, you would see that, wow, this is almost unmatched in other communities and other games. So anyways, thanks for your time, guys, and thanks for the questions and comments. I hope that helped out. If you ever have any other questions or whatever, you can always email, send me a YouTube and message, or leave a comment in any of the videos, and I'll be sure to collect them as I go. But at the same time, you have to understand that I won't be answering every single question, because sometimes I'll be answering in the first or in any of these Q&A videos. So be sure to check those out before you ask the question, and know that just because I don't answer it, it doesn't mean that I'm ignoring you, but that I'm also busy with my life and busy with other projects as well. So anyways, thanks for your time, guys, and I'll see you in the spiral. Peace.